May you find happiness and peace, and may your home stand the test of time.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mary. Today I'll be reacting to Kirk Humiliates RaceBaiting Sociology student. So without further ado, let's get started.
Did you think that slavery and ensuing Jim Crow laws had a lasting impact on the black community in the United States?
Some, and that's a good question. So if you correlate all the impact of Jim Crow and slavery, I would say that you could generously say 26% single motherhood in the black community in the 1960s. So about 26% of all black babies born in the 1950s and 1960s were born to a single mother. Now it's 77%. So I would ask you, why did it jump 50 points, 50%, since the Civil Rights Act as America got significantly less racist?
So that's fine. I don't know why it jumped. Who cares? But
Well, it wasn't slavery or Jim Crow. It
No.
was something else.
So the only lasting impact that slavery had on the U.S. was that less black families had fathers.
No, not necessarily. But have you ever known anyone that's owned a slave?
No, but I know a few presidents who did.
You know them personally? So you know anyone that was ever a slave?
Well, no, because okay, I don't know anyone who was a slave, so it had no impact?
No, it had some impact. The question is, did it have an impact that is measurable and significant enough now in 2021, where we saw a key metric that influenced the livelihood of the black community, like single motherhood rate, that as America got less racist, all of a sudden now 77% of black babies are born without a father, where before it was 26%.
Wow.
And I suppose the question is this, because this is the question about systemic racism, right? What law that is in practice today actively discriminates against black people?
So here's what I would say to that. The idea of capitalism and America, like you said, is it doesn't matter who you are, show me what you got, is fresh start. So what would happen if you had like 150 years in a country for your family to build wealth, to own a house, to have a job, to get college education for your kids, to build generational wealth? And then you took another family who didn't have the opportunity to do any of that for 150 years and then set them off on the same even starting point. Is that really an even starting point, and would that not result in some kind of systemic disadvantage for those people?
The black middle class was the fastest growing demographic in the 1940s and 1950s until the Great Society Act and that intervention. It's very tempting to do what you're doing. And I'm not faulting you for it, because you've probably been propagandized to believe it. And that's okay, because I think you're actually a victim in this case, because you've been misled to want to believe that things you never lived under, never understood, and that I think you are partially seeing had a disproportionate impact in the world that you're living in today. So for example, if that were to be true, then first-generation immigrants would not be able to make good choices and move up the ladder in this country, which I think we have some first-generation immigrants here tonight. Now, let me say this, that this idea that America is systemically racist to the core would also be quickly debunked by the fact that more blacks have legally immigrated to America since the 1980s than ever were here brought as slaves. Over 2 million blacks from the Caribbean and from Nigeria and from Western Africa have come here to America. So the question is, why is it that in every statistic that you could probably rattle off, are black people doing worse than white people? What is it? Well, I would point to the fact that fathers are not in the home, because it was 26% of black females in the 1960s were single mothers. Now it's 77%. If you look at the Brookings Institution, a liberal think tank, there are 3 things you need to do to stay out of poverty in America. Number 1, graduate high school. Well, because of public sector unions and the dominance of our government schools, that's harder than ever in far too many communities. Not just black communities, not just Hispanic communities. The second thing, get a job, any job. And the third thing is to obviously not to commit crimes, but to try to try to get married before you have children. And so some of what I believe has contributed to the downfall of some of these communities has nothing to do with white people with the neck on black people. Instead, it's the following. Fathers no longer being in the home, the rise of sexual anarchy that came in post-1960s liberalism that removed this idea of sex being confined to a marital relationship to be gratuitous and everywhere. All of a sudden you've seen an increase in not just the birth rate, but the single motherhood rate and abortion alongside of it. I would just ask this question, I'm just curious. How much do you think outputs are based on people's decisions, based on the advantages they're born into?
I mean, as someone who's taken Introduction to Sociology, your life is greatly influenced by what the conditions you're born into. But I promise this will be the last thing. Just, you say there's less fathers in the home of, many black families,
Yes.
and that's the issue. So what do you think is keeping fathers out of the home in those?
It's a great question.
Do you think it could be over-policing and police arresting, like,
We went through this,
disproportionately?
everybody.
Do you think it could be law enforcement disproportionately enforcing laws in black neighborhoods and arresting more black males than any other demographic?
So blacks are actually under-arrested and under-policed per the percentage of crimes they commit. We talked about some of those numbers. But let me tell you one thing in particular. In the Great Society Act, we decided as a civilization to subsidize single motherhood. In the 1960s, we told black women you no longer need to be married to have children, you can get married to the government. And we saw a dramatic escalation and increase of the deterioration of the nuclear family and a replacement of that of the nanny state and the welfare state. And I would say this, that every single activist group that steps up, that talks about systemic racism and oppression, if you look at the data, purely the data, if there is a movement to put black fathers back in the home and to try and challenge the sexual anarchy that came in the post-1960s and had a more prudent and pious view of sexual relations in America, which is a very unpopular view, by the way, for most Americans, but it's true that before the 1960s, sexual relations were, at least culturally, supposed to always be confined to marital relationships. The more gratuitous that we have been in trying to catalog it in media and in pop culture and in Hollywood and yes, in schools, then all of a sudden you have seen people say, well, why do I need to get married for that? Marriage is the bedrock institution, and strong families create strong communities, which create strong civilizations. And this is why immigrant communities that have come to America, and first-generation immigrants, they're able to move so quickly up the socioeconomic ladder because they might not have wealth, they might not have big bank accounts, they might not own a lot of land, but they have the thing they know that will keep them together, which is a family that will not be broken up at any means necessary. I'll finally say this. Let me just say this. No, I want to thank you for coming because it took courage to ask that question. I'm just going to ask you to do one thing. Please forget everything you learned in Introduction to Sociology 101 because it was likely all garbage. So thank you so much.
Charlie have a very funny way of doing things. He said he should forget everything he learned in sociology. Wow. Anyway, I love the kind of question the guy was asking because he's trying to ask questions that a whole lot of us have been, trying to ask too, and I think he asks it in the right way. Even if Charlie was able to debug all the questions, but I think I still give him, thumbs up for the question he asked because he did an excellent job. Anyway, I think I get the angle Charlie is coming from, the angle that talks about the fact that in the 1960s, black women were being married to the government, and being said, they were given the privilege to choose between their husband or the government. So you don't have to get married to have children. If you have children, the government is willing to come in for you and take care of those children. I think that is the major cause of high divorce because now people are feeling, why do I need to get married to this man and keep on enduring what he's giving me, whereby I can just be with the government and the government can cater for my kids. But the painful part about it is when you listen to this ideology or this stuff made by the government, you feel like you can do things alone without your man, and you end up getting pregnant for several men. And at the end of the day, when you look for compatibility, that companion, you end up not getting it because now men are becoming wise. Men feel like since you are ready to get, married to the government, to rely on the government to do things for you, because now they provide welfare and everything, I don't think they are ready to settle down anymore. That is why you see the high rate of baby mamas outside Africa or in the US is so much that in out of 20 people you get like 2 baby mamas. It's just so much, because now everyone feel like, yeah, I don't need a man, I don't need a man. But when, as time goes on, you feel like, okay, I think it's time, I need someone. And by that time, I don't think men are like, what's it called, let's say, things you see in the supermarket that you can just go and buy. Now men are becoming picky. They are now, deciding for themselves, are you sure I'm ready to enter this marriage with this woman that have 3 children for three different men? Now they are becoming so picky. And you see, the government is like, what the government did to help out is not causing more harm than good. To me, that is what I think, because as an African and a Nigerian, I see people finding it difficult to travel with their women, you see, because of the mindset of women in the West, the Western part of the world. They feel like they believe they can do without their men. So when you bring a woman all the way from Africa, um, to, let's say, the United States, before you know, she start acting some way, and if care is not taken, she'll divorce you, simply because she has seen a system that will do what she wants, and not like would provide for her kids and everything, even without you being around. And I feel that is the downside of it. Now people prefer to get married here in Africa, travel outside, make their money, come back to Africa and be with their children, because they feel like at least that ideology of the Western world will not get to them. Like they will be able to marry and stay in their marriage and grow with their children, take care of their children without like their wife firing for divorce. And I don't know, but if you've stayed with the black folks a lot, I think you get where I'm coming from. But aside from that, I feel he made mention of racism, and I feel racism has, died drastically, and I just thank God for that, because it's not like before that. Now you can, like before, you can't do things because of the color of your skin, but now, so long as you're qualified for any job, you have been given that job. And I think aside from that, he made mention of crime rates, and now I see black people going to school, black people trying to take themselves away from crime, like sincerely, like they are doing their best, unlike before when crime rate was just too much. I feel now it's reducing, and I know it's not going to go out once the same way. Racism is still there, but it's still the minimum. So everything is actually dying down a bit now. People believe that so long as they are qualified for the job, they can get that job. Now they are willing to put in the work. Unlike before, whereby the kind of job they do wasn't something to write home about. But now, so long as you have the qualification, whatever job you apply for, your possibility, probability of you getting it is like 80 to 90%, and it's a good score. Anyway, there's a beautiful one coming from Charlie. I enjoyed this video, and I really love the question the guy asked. They were all sensible questions that I would have loved to ask myself, and I think Charlie gave the best answer to them. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. If it is your first time visiting the channel, click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and remember bless.